Jen O'Malley Dillon, campaign chair for Kamala Harris, described media criticism of the vice president's lack of interviews during her campaign as completely bullshit in a recent interview, while blaming coverage for perpetuating unfair narratives.
I would say, I mean, look, I am not media hater by any measure, and I think that, we women don't get far in life talking about double standards, so that's not the point. But I do think a narrative, 107 days, 2 weeks fucked up because of a hurricane, 2 weeks talking about how she didn't do interviews, which, she was doing plenty, but we were doing in our own way. We had to, be the nominee, we had to find a running mate and do a rollout. I mean, there was all these things that you kind of want to factor in, but real people heard in some way that we were not going to have interviews, which was both not true and also so counter to any kind of standard that was put on Trump that I think that was a problem. And then on top of that, we would do an interview, and to Stephanie's point, the questions were small and processy and about like
dumb.
They were not informing a voter who was trying to listen to learn more or to understand. And I'm not here to say that the whole system was focused on us incorrectly. I'm just saying, like, again, of the things we need to explore as we move forward as a campaign and as a country, that does a disservice to voters. And I think back and think we should have signaled more of our strategy early on about podcasts and who we were trying to reach. But we had a limited amount of time to reach the people we were trying to reach, and we were trying to go to them. But being up against a narrative that we weren't doing anything or we were afraid to have interviews is completely bullshit, and also like took hold a little bit. And we just gave us another thing we had to fight back for that Trump never had to worry about.
Pluff, The fallout from Kamala Harris's presidential campaign loss has prompted senior staff to reflect on perceived missteps and media biases, with campaign chair Jen O'Malley Dillon taking aim at coverage that painted the team as avoiding interviews. Speaking on the Pod Save America podcast, Dillon argued that Harris faced a narrative problem not shared by Donald Trump. We were up against a narrative that we weren't doing anything or were afraid to have interviews, which was completely bullshit, Dillon said. She highlighted Harris's rigorous schedule, including finding a running mate and managing a campaign rollout. Dillon and other campaign leaders, including David Plouffe and Stephanie Cutter, suggested that the media's focus on Harris's interview count and small processy questions distracted from substantive issues. The questions Harris got were not informing a voter trying to learn more about her, Cutter added, describing them as dumb and out of touch with voter priorities. Harris's team also expressed frustration over being denied appearances on popular shows like Hot Ones, which cited a no politics policy and challenges securing a spot on the Joe Rogan Experience. Cutter explained that this rejection reflected a broader issue with non-political platforms declining to engage with Harris, contrasting Trump's ability to tap into cultural elements through appearances on widely followed podcasts and streams. Trump leveraged platforms such as the Joe Rogan Experience and Barstool Sports to reach broad audiences, often committing to lengthy interviews. In contrast, Harris's team reportedly proposed shorter sessions and had logistical challenges traveling to Rogan's Austin studio. Critics, however, argue that Harris failed to connect with voters due to a lack of transparency in her campaign messaging. Media coverage increasingly scrutinized her reluctance to address specifics during interviews, fueling doubts about her leadership. Dillon defended the campaign strategy, saying, "We had limited time to reach the people we were trying to reach." She also pointed to double standards in media expectations for female candidates. "Real people heard that we weren't going to do interviews, and it gave us another thing to fight back against," she said. Harris's missed opportunities to engage with prominent non-political media are now seen as a critical gap in her campaign. Her staff admitted that clearer early communication about their strategy, focusing on podcasts and localized outreach, might have mitigated criticism. As the Harris team continues to dissect its shortcomings, Dillon and others remain adamant that media bias and limited access to cultural platforms played a significant role in the campaign's defeat. Meanwhile, the conversation underscores the evolving importance of non-traditional media in modern political campaigns.